our first speaker is Sarika Agrawal. She's the co-founder of the Brain Foundation. I know I've been to some of their conferences, and they're amazing. The work that they're doing, within the innovation community, especially the research community, academic research, basic science, that actually, will produce some cool therapies and diagnostics and stuff like that. So, Sarika, welcome. The stage is yours. Over the slides. Yeah. And please introduce yourself. I did do it justice.
No, you said the most important thing. So that's all that matters. But it's lovely to see some very familiar faces in the room here. Perhaps I know a few of the folks who are online as well. So I've worn many different hats in my life. I used to be an ASIC design engineer. I've worked as a management consultant at McKinsey, led enterprise software marketing for a company that was acquired by Oracle. But I tell you, the most purposeful, the most important thing for my life that I feel passionate about is in autism, and specifically around what science and data can do to change lives of people here. So, I've as Yuli said, I'm one of the co-founders here of the Brain Foundation. And today I want to talk about innovation that can improve health, improve independence and quality of life of autism. And I come here not just as a nonprofit board member. I mean, I'm also on the board of the Autism Society of San Francisco Bay Area. But I bring to this conversation, the most important thing I bring here, I feel, is my own lived experience as a parent to a 20-year-old. He is a rising sophomore, hoping to major in economics today. He's also, though, a non-speaking autistic. He has very complex medical conditions, and he has very high support needs. And if there's one thing that this journey has taught me, actually not one thing, two things. One, I've seen firsthand the unbelievable, untapped potential that exists in people with autism. Many of them have that. But I've also seen how desperately behind the systems that can support this potential are. And that's not the way it needs to be. We can do better, and innovation is what gets there. So the reason I, right away said yes to you, Yuli, was because of what I believe innovation can do. Now, one of the things that, I always encounter, and I don't have to tell you guys in the room, often autism is framed as a niche concern. It's a special interest. What does that have to do with the rest of the world? And to anyone that thinks this way, I challenge their thinking, because history is replete with examples where disability was actually at the forefront, at the leading edge of innovation, not the last one. Anyone who's gone through automated doors, anybody who has used text messaging, closed captions, do you know that a lot of these innovations actually came out of the disability world? Curb cuts. Today, parents with strollers use it. Travelers who have luggage that they want to carry. I mean, that came about because of the ADA and what happened for people in wheelchairs. Similarly, text messaging was developed for people who were deaf. So the part that I want all of us to carry, because we are all looking for resources, we are all looking to try to get the best of talent, looking at autism, and working on innovating, is that when we innovate on the margins, we actually transform the center. That's one of the most important things for us to all know, that this is not a niche, that we can actually really change the way, even it's not just for us autism parents or people who have a loved one. Everyone stands to benefit because of innovation that comes out of here. Now, there are many areas I mean, I can tell you as a mom, I've pretty much every aspect of life, healthcare access, healthcare delivery, education, accessibility, almost every area is influenced by or how the systems work influence people with autism and vice versa. But in my experience, the number one thing that I found that really impacted my son's potential and many others like him that I know are the underlying health conditions. Because if you're not healthy, if you struggle on a day-to-day basis, how in the world are you going to be able to sit in a classroom and pay attention? If you, he types to communicate, and he's doing college work, but his typing speed is so slow that he puts in 3 times more hours than any typical student does. And he asks me, Mom, I want to be able to type faster. Help me with that. He's also a kid, or not a kid anymore, an adult, with many medical conditions. And he's not the only one. In fact, this is a community-wide problem that there is a much greater prevalence of health issues within the autism population than those without autism. And if those health issues persist, it's going to be one of the biggest factors limiting their ability to do what they can do, what they want to do. So, here's an example. And for me, what concerns me most is look at the life expectancy. 39 years versus 78 years that number is, right? There's safety issues, there are kids who elope, they're drowning. I mean, these are hard realities. We don't want to hear it. It often doesn't get highlighted, but this is the reality. And our kids deserve better. Our community deserves better. So this is an area that I feel really, really passionately about. And it was the impetus behind me co-founding the Brain Foundation with Elizabeth sitting here, Pramila Srinivasan, who's not here. And our goal is to catalyze research and entrepreneurship that can lead to the development of evidence-based, commercializable, FDA-approved therapeutics for autism. And our vision is better health, better independence, better quality of life overall for people with autism. The way we work is by offering grants to academic institutions. We also do on a case-by-case basis early seed investments in startups. These are examples of some of the academic institutions where our investigators are currently working. What I want to talk about is how our approach is unique and different. We're very lucky as a community that there are many nonprofits that work in this area where we could always have more, but we have quite a few. The reason we co-founded Brain was because we saw certain gaps in the way we were approaching the science and the research and the innovation ecosystem. Number one, we wanted to go directly to the community, and we wanted people in the community to tell us, well, what is it, you want? I mean, scientists can sit in ivory towers and they can develop things, and as can entrepreneurs, but that direct connection to the community is very important. So a lot of our research priorities are directly driven by what people in the community tell us. We have a community advisory board because we want to make sure that the innovation or the research or whatever we are focusing on is relevant and useful for what the community needs, not anybody else, but them. The second thing we really wanted to hone on is focus on translational research. Now, when my son was diagnosed, right, this was, eons back, I was a software person. I was used to life cycles of 2 years maximum product to market, right? I said, well, come on, it's 5 years. I didn't really have anyone else in our family that had autism before. So I was kind of clueless about all this. I said, thanks, 5 years, 7 years, we'll have something out there that, should help him access life in the ways that each of us can. Lo and behold, we've had some changes, we've had innovation, but really these have been incremental. And that goes back to Yuli's point. when youth people opened up, that the pace of the outcomes that are coming is so slow. And, he's 20 years old today. So we believe that focus on translational research, which means science that can be taken from a lab and can immediately be translatable to something that's commercializable, that can actually reach the end consumer, bench to bedside, that is really, really, really critical. And so basic science is very helpful, very useful, but really, I mean, some of these things can take years and decades to productize. There needs to be an emphasis on things that directly translate immediately to therapeutics that can be useful today. The third thing we noticed was, while there were billions of dollars being spent on research over decades, there are certain subgroups that were really underrepresented. In fact, very little knowledge existed. Non-speakers, right, or minimally speaking people. Adults, one of the classic things that I always tell people is autism is sometimes thought of as a pediatric condition. And everything is looked at as early intervention. And it's wonderful that that happens, nothing to take away from that. But guess what? Autistic children grow up into being autistic adults. We have over 7 million in the United States alone today. Who's looking at their needs? Who's looking at whether it's housing, whether it's their healthcare, whether it's their love life? I mean, there are a whole spectrum of adult life that totally gets neglected. And what happens to their health as they go through the lifespan? Similarly, people with high support needs, people who have aggression, people who have self-injurious behaviors, doesn't probably make them very happy and content if that's what they struggle with. So this is the other area we really wanted to focus and prioritize our investment in. Lastly, many autism nonprofits support research, they give grants. But what we found was lacking is, again, it goes back to the translational research, is how that then gets taken up by pharma companies, biotech companies, to actually lead to something. Otherwise, there's this valley of death where wonderful science comes out, but then nothing makes its way. So the support for industry was critical and was lacking. And that's another area where we do our work. And finally, what we think is unique is this isn't just just a job for us. This is our lives. So everybody on the Brain Foundation board has a personal loved one with autism, so it's personal stakes here. And that's what makes our mission even more powerful. So what are some of the opportunities and priorities that we are investing in and we are focusing on? One is treating these co-occurring conditions. What emerging research is beginning to show that when you treat the underlying health issues of people with autism, many of their disabling symptoms that are considered autism also improve. So that's a big area of focus for us. The second is drug repurposing. There's a lot of investment that goes into developing novel drugs, and it's a very capital and time-intensive process. But guess what? We have 3,000 drugs sitting on pharmacy shelves here, all of which have safety data. 80% of them are generic, and many of those could be useful for autism, but we don't even know because nobody's looked at them. There is no incentive in the system to study existing drugs and their application for unresolved conditions. The third thing we're doing is supporting research in how there are shared pathways. Why do people with autism tend to have a lot more GI issues? Are there shared biological pathways that affect both? And we are putting a lot of our grants in that area, is to study how they comprehend language around them. How do they, what's impacting their ability to speak? What are the biological reasons behind it? The fourth thing we are, in fact, if you visit any of our events, you'll find we are focusing heavily on developing consensus guidelines with clinicians based on the treatments that we know today, because there isn't a standard of care and protocols that can be used across hospitals and across clinics to treat patients and improve outcomes. And finally, we're working with a lot of different biotech companies and industry folks to identify responsive patient subgroups, because we know that this is a very heterogeneous condition. It's a spectrum. So these are some of the areas that we're focused on. And in the interest of time, I'm going to skip to the next and come back to it if anybody has more questions. Here are some of the example companies that have been part of our Synchrony, which is our annual symposium. The next one is coming up in August. I encourage all of you who haven't attended Synchrony to join us and have a chance to see what each of these companies are doing in the area. And lastly, I just want to say that what keeps us going every day is what our community people tell us. These are 3 autistics, and this is just an example of what they're telling us of what we should do and why we should do it. And this is what fuels our passion, our purpose in the area. So I encourage you all to join the cause, support us, help us with introductions, and reach out if you have any questions at Brain Foundation level.